Hi, I'm Rafi, and we will talk about the Electronic Securities Act, or as we like to call it in Germany, the Elektronische Wertpapiergesetz, and why or how we believe that this progressive piece of regulation will and actually is already transforming capital markets at a large scale in Europe, but also here in Germany. But first of all, who is Cashlink? I divided the slide in two parts. I wanted to show you a select few of our clients, so you can understand what type of clients we serve. On the one side, we have investment platforms that are to offer basically real-world assets, but on-chain. So we tokenize real estate, art, old-timers, livestock, food, stuff like that. On the other side, on the very other side of the spectrum, we work with large financial institutions, or corporates, such as Siemens or Deutsche Bank, where we help them change and create efficiencies in the way on how they approach traditional financial instruments in public capital markets. Overall, our service explained in numbers would mean that by now we've supported more than 180 issuances with Cashlink's technology, and by doing so we created more than 37,000 transactions on our infrastructure. And if we take a brief look at our history or at our most prominent issuances, we really have the first mover's advantage here, as we have done the very first tokenization of a participation certificate of our own company shares as a GmbH. We also have tokenized the first share on the DAX from Telecom. We've done the largest public STO, the first tokenized NFT, the first issuance under the Electronic Securities Act, the first tokenized funds and ETF, the Deutsche Bank issuance I mentioned for their own treasury, and also we did the largest issuance in the Electronic Securities Act space, which was issuance by Siemens worth 60 million euros. This altogether leads to the fact that Cashlink by now is the leading registrar here in Germany, with almost 50% of all issuances that ever were to be issued under our registry. And with the next slide, I just wanted to show you a brief use case of why tokenization is so cool and so helpful in current markets. If we take a look at the German ecosystem of investing, you see public capital markets, which represent roughly $800 trillion, and private capital markets, which are much larger than $1,000 trillion in assets. However, the private capital market is accompanied by a few disadvantages, which are high investment barriers, high investment costs, very low liquidity, and no common used infrastructure. And by the means of tokenization or distributed ledger technologies, we can actually bring in one common used infrastructure, which is in our case the blockchain, increase liquidity, while at the same time bringing investment barriers or investment costs to almost zero. So it's quite cool. And now I would like to hand over to Christian, who will talk you through the depths of regulation.
Exactly. Thanks, Rafi. First of all, let's have a look at how we at Cashlink think that capital markets can be reimagined and how we see the capital markets in the future. So we have the three key features here. First one, of course, tokenization. So that means that you have a digital reproduction of a real asset. And from our perspective, it comes with the main advantages of that you can fractionalize your asset, and also illiquid assets can become liquid. Second part is smart contracts. So of course, programmable, they automatically enforce themselves on predefined conditions. So that really helps compliance departments, because we have embedded compliance rules within these things. And really one of the most interesting part is that you get rid of the risks in settlement. We'll come to that later. Again, and the third part, I guess most of you here at this conference know, distributed ledger technology. You have the truthless trust, and also, of course, the accuracy and transparency across the whole ecosystem, so you always know what is going on. What we saw over the last 3 years was that, of course, financial institutions tried to come into this market. So first they did some POCs, then we see more MVPs, and now also looking forward for some more scaling projects. And as you can see here on this slide, you see the big names on there like BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, DK Bank, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, all of them are coming into this market. And how does this look like for the bigger companies? We have two examples here that we did at Cashlink. So the first one is the Deutsche Bank bond issuances. that was done under Cashlink's crypto security registrar license. And this was a private placement, so not announced within the press, but you could find that, and these screenshots here are always from the BaFin website, so where you see that we are regulated and need to show everything that we do on this website. The second part is from the Siemens bond issuances, where this issuance has been done via the security registrar license by Hauck & Aufhäuser, and they only just use the technology, the DLT technology, the smart contracts that we provide at Cashlink. So why are now bigger institutions coming into this market? And this has to do just with regulatory developments that we see in Europe. First, what we had were that we in Germany got these eWpG, Rafi already mentioned, so the possibility to tokenize securities under a regulated framework. Then we got this crypto FAV, and now we are really looking forward to the Finance Future Act, so that not only bearer bonds can be tokenized, but also real equities. And what really helps us now is regulations from the EU coming, like the DLT pilot regime or the MiCA. So the main advantage of the eWpG was that the central security depository was no longer needed, so it led us all to a much leaner value chain, and we had the possibility therefore to also issue low volume issuances, so because of the pricing structure, and can now start really issue legally any kind of asset. So I put a slide of MiCA in here, but MiCA not directly addresses tokenized security, what we are talking about, but it really helps us to get the whole world into an on-chain environment, because on the left-hand side you see that we now also get the e-money token regulated, because what we believe in Cashlink is, on the first-hand side we have tokenized assets, then we need to have regulated tokenized money like stablecoins, and the third part would be also an identity on-chain. So with MiCA we got this, and that helps us now within the DLT pilot regime that contains of these three pillars here, that you can choose if you want to participate in this regulatory sandbox, if you just want to have a multilateral trading facility for financial instruments, if you want to do the settlement part, so the DLT SSS, so where you can do the settlement against payment and delivery, or if you want to have the third part, the combination, so on the same market infrastructure, do the settlement and the payment together. And now, Rafi, back to you for the outlook.
Thank you. So as you might have noticed, we are very, very bullish on tokenization and distributed ledger-based capital markets. And I just wanted to highlight two key statements once more. So first of all, we see very, very much comfort in regulators with the technologies we are using, such as the blockchain, just by seeing that they are passing acts that allow these infrastructures to be used in the regulated world, the Electronic Securities Act, MiCA, or the DLT pilot regime, just as examples. And on the other side, we see that on both sides of the investment game, so on the issuer side or on the investor side, we see that we really move away from an experimental phase or a proof of concept phase to proper issuances and proper volumes. And that's very nice to see. But I guess we are still at the beginning, and but are moving at a rapid pace. So it's just a huge opportunity for everyone to get in here in Europe, but mostly in Germany, to just profit from the eWpG. And for the last two slides to close the presentation, I just wanted to bring some numbers. We brought two reports here. The first one is from the Boston Consulting Group, and it looks at the numbers at a worldwide scale. And they estimate until the year 2030 that we see crypto securities or electronic securities worth $16 to $68 trillion, so a massive growth in market share. And they highlighted one key phrase, which is also the key statement of today's presentation, that they, and we believe that tokenization will make a huge impact on private and public capital markets. On the private side, it will really remove access barriers and increase liquidity, while public capital markets will just become more cost efficient by the removal of middlemen such as paying agents or a CSD, which can easily be replaced by a smart contract. And the next slide is a study which was performed by WPEX, which is just doing a similar estimation, but only for the German capital market. And what they found out is that until 2026, or in 3 years, we can estimate 1.5 trillion euros worth of issuance in the electronic securities sphere, and this accompanied by annual new issuances of more than 600 billion euros. And these numbers, they exclude everything that is equity or stock, because by now the eWpG only allows debt instruments, so mostly bonds, and also tokenized funds, but equity is still not part of the game, and it is anticipated to be rolled out by the end of this year, so this could really give a huge boost to the volumes we see in these markets, and so could the DLT pilot regime that Christian mentioned, if it turns out to be a successful and is going away from a sandbox phase. And now we've come to the end of the presentation. I hope we sparked some interest in tokenization, but also in Cashlink. If you want to talk more, if you have questions, Christian, Nele, and I, we have a booth here at floor 3, booth G08. So please come by or meet us later for a beer at some of the after events.